We often assume we know the stories of other people. We assume we know them just because we know their names, maybe what they're good at, or what they like to do. You may even confuse following someone on Instagram with actually knowing their story. Now, just a heads up, someone's Instagram story is not their personal story. We are all guilty of assuming we know where our friends live, but until we step into their homes, there are pieces of them we may never be aware of. There is more to a person than what we see on the outside. Everyone has a backstory we may never know about. We also have a backstory. Each one of us has a story that comes with family dynamics, friends, things that have happened to us, hurts that we may even carry. We have all had bad days. When our bad day starts out bad, we can become victims of our emotions. Giving grace to our friends and our families in those times are important because the reality is we never know what's going on, what they're going through. We don't always try to understand their backstory, and because of that, we often miss out on being personal with them and knowing the story of who they are. Over and over in the New Testament, we see Jesus take the time to understand the people he met. He took the time to have conversations and share meals with people that no one else would have spent time with. Jesus looked for opportunities to get personal with people. Now, we've been talking about a man named Zacchaeus and how Jesus walked into his life. Luke 19, verse 5 and 6 says, when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your house today. Zacchaeus climbed down and took Jesus to his house. See, Jesus invited himself over to Zacchaeus' house and took time to enter Zacchaeus' world. He knew there was more to Zacchaeus than what everyone else in town thought about him. Luke 19, verse 7 says, but the people were displeased. He has gone to the house of a notorious sinner. See, some of the people didn't like that. This thing about Jesus, though, is he didn't necessarily care what others thought about him. Jesus wanted to step into the place Zacchaeus was most comfortable, his home. You see, your space, your home, is where you let your guard down. It was the place that Jesus knew he could get closer to Zacchaeus and learn more about the man Zacchaeus actually was. Where we live is more than our physical address. You see, there's a part of our story that not everyone gets invited into. But here's the thing. Jesus already knew Zacchaeus' backstory. But Jesus spending time in Zacchaeus' home made it all more personal. He was able to connect with Zacchaeus in a way that the crowd was not willing to do. As we look at Jesus' life, we see that he sought out ways to get personal with people and to understand their stories. Take a look at what the Apostle Paul said to the church in Philippi in Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. He says, you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges, took the humble position of a servant, and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Jesus stepped into our world as a human. Jesus made God personal for us. The same exact moments from your story may not have happened to him, but we can't forget that as a human, Jesus was once a baby and cried all night just like we once did. Jesus had to deal with siblings. Jesus was forgotten even by his parents. Jesus experienced loss as one of his best friends died. Jesus questioned his purpose. Jesus dealt with people ridiculing him and doubt. He knows the hurts you carry, the worries you have, and he knows the doubt you have in him. He knows your hopes. He knows your dreams and your prayers. He understands. Now here's the truth. It's personal because Jesus understands your story. Now let's get real for a second. It can be hard to let people into our lives and let people know all about us. It can be easy for us to hold on to our secrets because we don't want people to necessarily judge us. The beautiful thing is when we begin to boldly share our stories with other people, it gives others this sense of comfort that they can share their stories too. So how do we do that? For some of you, the first step is to acknowledge that Jesus knows you, all the pieces of you, and that he wants to step into your story. He can understand your story, your situation, your emotions, and he loves you. You see, Jesus knew Zacchaeus, all the rumors about his life, how he was an outcast from his community, how people hated him for his job, and how he treated others. Jesus knew that, but also knew that there was more to the story of Zacchaeus. Jesus wants to step into your life. He wants to get personal with you. Now, some of you, your next step is to let someone else into your story. Maybe someone you know already that you know has your back. What if you knew that they already cared about you? Maybe start with your small group leader. Here's a secret. They have their own backstory too. Why not share a little more with your small group? Talk about your backstory. Allow your group to see who you are when you were not with them. When you share your backstory, you are opening the door for someone else to have the freedom to also share their backstory. Allowing someone to see who you are behind closed doors can allow you to make connections with people you might not have ever connected with before. And the thing that makes you feel different could be the very thing that makes you connect well with someone else. Now, for some of you, it's time for you to really understand the story of other people. We have to create safe spaces in our lives to get to know others. We often act like the crowd did towards Zacchaeus. We see what is on the outside, and we pass judgment on other people because of that. Our lives can change when we allow people to see who we are, and even more whenever we can begin to understand the stories of others. Now, just as Jesus took the time to go into Zacchaeus' home to understand Zacchaeus' backstory, Jesus wants to be invited into your life. Jesus wants to understand every part of who we are because our relationship with him is personal.